Gentlemen, I'm Lauren Schoenberg, the founding director, senior scholar here at the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, and welcome to a very special presentation. It's funded by the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation. We've been doing it for a few years, and this year, our leader, scholar, and band leader is Miss Allison Lee. Allison, let's join me in welcoming her.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Jazz Museum. It's really great to be here for the second week in a row. And last week we were here and we celebrated Melba Liston, but this week we are celebrating another wonderful jazz musician who does not nearly get as much recognition as she deserves, which is the wonderful trumpet player and vocalist Tiny Davis. Tiny Davis, I considered introducing her myself, but I think I'll let her introduce herself to you.
You know, in every band, there's always someone that you would say maybe the heart of the band. Even if you're in not really a slump, but if things are going sort of slow, Tiny would come on, and when she would come on, she would just rejuvenate everybody.
On the sidewalk, Sunday morning, lies a body. Who's the life? Someone sneaking round the corner. Hello, say, back to die. Now look here, looking tired.
So that's Tiny Davis. Tiny Davis was actually born Ernestine Carroll in Memphis, Tennessee, and she began playing the trumpet at age 13. The way she started playing the trumpet was actually because she saw some of the boys at her school who were playing around with it during their break times, during their recess times, and she was like, "What's that?" And they were like, "Oh, it's a trumpet." And so she went home and she told her mom, "Please, I need to get one of these." And her mom took her to the store and bought her a trumpet that day. And she describes how her trumpet practicing actually happened on top of their barn in the house. She would basically sit on the roof of the barn, and all her friends would gather around her to listen to her play, and she describes that she would often show off for them, and those were some of the highlights of her early years. She was also the youngest of 7 children. She had 4 sisters and 2 brothers. And she was the only woman musician who lived in Memphis, Tennessee, or that she knew of at the time. So when she moved to Kansas City with her husband quite a few years later, who was working in Kansas City, she joined a band called the Harlem Playgirls. And this was an all-mixed, all-girl band that was, I think it was a quintet or a sextet. And she joined them in 1935, and they traveled all over the country, and mostly playing for white people, playing standards and blues and all different kinds of music. And then she left the band to give birth to a couple of children. She had several children with her husband, and she was making, she says that she was making 75 cents to $1.25 every day. But she said that there were always tips involved, which was always very nice. And she would use this money often to feed her children. There were quite a lot of children that she had to take care of. So she was very much a provider for her kids in the same way that her husband was. But she eventually actually left her husband. She said they didn't get along very well. They had some problems with each other, so she packed up all her stuff. She left her big house, her comfy life in Kansas City, and left with nothing except her trumpet. What happened is she had actually seen an ad in the newspaper, and there was a new band that was forming. It was a big band, and it was called the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. And this was a band that was also a mixed race band. It was an interracial band, and they were all women. And so she answered an ad in this band in the newspaper and said, "Oh, they're looking for a trumpet player. I would love to play in this band." The original members of the International Sweethearts of Rhythm were actually, they had all met in Mississippi in 1938. at the Piney Woods Country Life School, which is a school for poor and African American children. The majority who attended Piney Woods were orphans, including band member Helen Jones, who was actually adopted by the school's principal, Lawrence C. Jones. And Lawrence C. Jones was a bit of a businessman. He had a vision for this band, for these kids who were learning how to play music. And he said that he was inspired by Ina Ray Hutton's Melodeers to create an all-female jazz band at Piney Woods. And he was kind of this, like, since he was the principal of the school, he had a lot of experience in fundraising and raising money for the school, so he thought that the best way to raise money for the kids' education would be if we put them all in a band, teach them how to play music, and make them go out to clubs and play concerts. And at the time, most of these kids were only like 14 to 19 years old. Having been so in the early 1920s, Jones supported the school by sending an all-female vocal group called the Cotton Blossom Singers on the road as well. And following the fundraising successes of that band and other Piney Woods musical groups, he formed the Swinging Rays of Rhythm, and that was kind of also the understudies of the Sweethearts of Rhythm. So as you can tell, there is a lot of music happening at this school, a lot of mostly female bands and organizations that were actually created as a result of Lawrence C. Jones. According to the saxophonist and band leader Lou Holloway, the Swinging Rays of Rhythm became the resident all-female swing band at Piney Woods after April 1941, when the Sweethearts left. So what had happened is the International Sweethearts of Rhythm became a professional act. Some of the girls realized that because they were out playing clubs all the time, they were not in their classes enough, and so they weren't going to graduate. And a couple of them were like, hey, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We have been in this band at school that was founded by our principal to raise money for the school, but we're not going to graduate. So they actually cut ties with the school. They became a professional organization, and they hit the road almost immediately and started playing all across the world. And yet again, because this band was a high school band, most of them were still, in between the ages of 14 to 19. So the band settled in Arlington, Virginia, where a wealthy Virginian supported them, and members from different races, including Latina, Asian, Caucasian, Black, Native American, Indian, and Puerto Rican, lent the band this kind of international flavor, although it was still very much so a mostly African American band. And the name International Sweethearts of Rhythm was given to the group. Some of the most influential and the stars of this band include women such as Pauline Brady, who was actually tutored on the drums by Sid Catlett and Joe Jones, so she was very much the star of their rhythm section. Willie Mae Wong, who was a Chinese and Black saxophonist, Edna Williams, and 13 others, including Helen Jones, who was, yes, the adopted daughter of the principal of the school, who had originally founded the band. And Anna Mae Winburn, this incredible vocalist, became the band leader in 1941. She had resigned from her position after leading the Cotton Club Boys in North Omaha, Nebraska, which featured guitarists Charlie Christian and Fletcher Henderson, and she led the band until she retired. So this is, when Tiny Davis joined the band, Anna Mae Winburn was the main vocalist who was in charge of all their operations. The venues where they performed were predominantly, if not only, for Black audiences. These included the Apollo Theater in Harlem, which we actually, some of my bandmates and I drove by on the way to get here today, the Howard Theater in Washington, D.C., the Regal Theater in Chicago, the Cotton Club in Cincinnati, the Riviera in St. Louis, the Dreamland in Omaha, the Club Plantation and $1 Million Theater in Los Angeles. They were also one of the only interracial all-female bands to be invited to Europe during the Second World War to perform and raise morale of some of the Black troops who were serving in the war. And so when she entered the band's ad that they had put out in the newspaper in 1941, she wasn't actually the only woman to do so. Tiny Davis was the trumpet player soloist that joined the band, and there was another woman who joined, saxophonist Bea Burnside. There's a photo of the two soloists. And they were both members of the all-Black Harlem Playgirls during the 1930s, and that's where they met. And so they continued to be kind of the soloists of the band together throughout the 1940s when the International Sweethearts of Rhythm were running together. They were very powerhouse soloists that considered the stars of the Sweethearts and helped launch the band's success on the road. Most of the newspapers that I looked at in studying for this project actually mentions both of them and say, Tiny Davis featured in the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, or V. Burnside featured in the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. Don't miss the show. You'll want to see it. Super high energy, very fun. And so, according to pianist Johnny May Rice, because of the Jim Crow laws in the southern states of the former Confederacy, the band basically lived on the bus, and that became their kind of warehouse, their moving warehouse, if you will, for all their operations. This is where they would rehearse. This is where they lived. This is where they slept. This is also where they taught each other arithmetic and had classes with each other because they were still mostly schoolgirls. Segregation laws prevented them from using certain restaurants and hotels. And actually, Roz Cron, who was one of the white saxophonists that joined the band later, describes an experience that she had where they were crossing in El Paso, and she said, "We white girls were supposed to say, my mother was black and my father was white, because that was the way it was in the South. Well, I swore to the sheriff that that's what I was, but he went through my wallet, and there was a photo of my mother and father sitting before our little house in New England with the picket fence, and it just didn't gel. So I spent my night in jail." Because of situations like this, the band members took a lot of precautions. For example, the white women in the band wore dark makeup on stage to avoid arrest. So they, Rose in this documentary that I watched, she describes how she would use pigments and oils and dark makeup products to try and darken her features so that she could appear at least ambiguously mixed. But she also describes that she never really came out right. It always was, she ended up looking kind of freakish, and this was something that a lot of the white women in the band went through and tried to do to endure and pass through the South as they were touring with supposedly an all African-American, although international band. Because of situations like this, the band member had to be very, very careful, and they made very little money because of this. According to the saxophonist Willie Mae Wong, the original members received only $1 a day for food plus $1 a week for allowance, so they would make about $8 a week. And then eventually they got a raise, basically, for after a couple years, where they were now making $15 a week. But by the time the band had disbanded in 1949, they were making $15 a night, 3 nights a week, so $45 a week, as opposed to the original $8 over the course of being on the road nonstop for 10 years all throughout the 1940s. So I'll let them tell you also about some of the conditions that they endured while they were on the road together.
We traveled on a sleeper bus, and I had the top bunk through most of the Midwest. And by having the top bunk, I had about 1/3 of the window. And I just lay on my stomach for hour after hour just watching the Midwest go by. This was the way I was going to live. I was going to always live with the gals and always eat where they ate and subject myself to whatever they were subjected to.
We had these white girls that was traveling with us. We had about 3 or 4, and they would paint their faces dark in order to play, you know, so the police wouldn't come and take them off the stand or they wouldn't be arrested.
It was absolutely necessary that I pass as black, or at least attempt to, all the time. Try to, using different makeup and turn my skin orange. I mean, I never came out right. We tried tight permanents, and I always looked very freakish and not quite right. But we tried everything we could. And most of the time I just ended up by hiding.
Somebody reported it to the authorities that we had white people in the band.
We had heard that some sheriffs were nosing around the bus, and they had a feeling, or they knew, or somehow or other they heard that there were some white women.
We had to slip them out of the back door of the bus before the police came to search the bus to see if we had white girls in there, see? So we put them in a black cab driver. He was frightened. He didn't want to even drive the girls.
Nobody thought to take anything, enough money, or, you know, just running out of this bus. 3 of us, we had to lie on the floor of the cab, and this poor little frightened cab driver raced across town and got us to the train station.
Helen Sane wasn't white. She was mulatto. She was part white. But they always took the mulatto ones to be the whites. They get them all mixed up.
We went to the station, and we were automatically ushered onto the white car on the train. So we just went in and sat down. And so it was simpler for a lot of blacks who did look white, or were part white, or mostly white, to just go along and with the program.
We ran into many little incidents like that, you know, in the South, but that didn't stop us.
So, like Anna Mae Winburn has just said, there was a lot of complications with touring in the South, which meant that it was very hard for the band to stop at restaurants or at hotels and be able to go in and get into these places and, you know, use their businesses there. And so what ended up happening a lot of the time is that they would just live on the tour bus, or they would just live at the train station. And Tiny Davis actually kind of took advantage of this for her own situation, and I'll let her tell you how she did that.
We didn't really try to get into any of the places in the South because of the integrated group. We saved ourselves a lot of trouble and headaches by staying on the bus.
There was no facility to cook there. Tiny Davis made sandwiches and things and sold it to us.
Try to make a little money, and I would sell the young girls some food. I'd buy it out, bologna, and make them good sandwich. I'd wash them hands, though, and sell them soda pop and whatever they wanted. I sold it to them. In the meantime, I would wash, they'd have some white blouses. I had me an iron. I would wash the blouses and charge them 50 cents a piece. I was supposed to be one of the stars of the band, but you know me, a little hustling lady.
And this sort of energy is exactly what really drew me to become fascinated with Tiny Davis's character. As you can see, even reminiscing on this situation many years later at the, you know, when she has settled down and she's in her home, she still has this amazing energy about what she talks about in terms of her experiences with the band. You know me, little hustling lady. I just love her energy there. And especially hearing what the other members of the International Sweethearts of Rhythm had to say about her, especially in the first clip that I used to introduce her when she played Mac the Knife. They always said that she has this energy about her that if a gig wasn't going so well, if a date wasn't kind of going stale, as soon as she would come on and play a solo or start singing, all of a sudden that energy would just come right back. And so in preparation for this concert, I spoke with Dr. Kernodle, who's the academic consultant for this musicologist as well, and incredible, just very incredible to chat with, and very lucky to have the privilege to have met her. And I talked to her about some of my revelations and how I was drawn to Tiny Davis and how she could have this amazing energy. And so Dr. Kernodle gave me some context on Tiny Davis as both an energy provider and a need provider for the band.
You're talking about real hardships. You're not talking about people who are necessarily being able to go back after the show to the Holiday Inn. You're not talking about people who are able to stop at an IHOP or McDonald's and just pick up something to eat. So you're talking about somebody who saw themselves as a primary caregiver of this band by one, shaping the energy of these encounters, these performance moments, shaping the energy of engagement with these band members, but also providing, in some cases, their basic needs because of the inequities that they experienced on the road.
How many of you have heard of the International Sweethearts of Rhythm before, or of Tiny Davis? I would love to see a show of hands. I know Mr. Schoenberg in the back there has definitely heard of her before, as he commissioned me to do this concert. But like I said, I also didn't know very much about the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, and I had only really heard Tiny Davis's name in some obscure biography about the whole history of jazz listed with no information under the trumpet player section, especially in textbooks or something that had like a special, women in jazz section, just Tiny Davis, and that's all of the information it gave me. And so I was really fascinated when I was going through some of the newspaper clippings that I found to study Tiny Davis, because I saw so many of these incredible newspaper sources that said, Tiny Davis coming, you won't want to miss this, sold out concert, Tiny Davis performing with her band, sold out concert, International Sweethearts of Rhythm, all these different newspaper clippings that really just showed how successful the band really was at that time. And so I also wanted to know and talk to Dr. Kernodle about why we might not hear maybe about the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, given that they were so prolific back in the 1940s when they were touring, and how well-renowned they had become. And even one Howard Show Theater in 1941, the band set a box office record of 35,000 patrons in 1 week. Just 35,000 people had come to watch them perform. And Louis Armstrong, Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, these large jazz names were also fans of the band, and they would regularly hear them perform. And one funny story is that Tiny Davis was actually offered by Louis Armstrong to join his band, and he was very persistent in this approach. He asked actually quite a few times, maybe 5 or 10 times. And he also was offering 5 or 10 times the salary that Tiny Davis was currently making with the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. But every time he offered, she said no. And I'll let her tell you why as well.
Louis Armstrong was one of our very dearest friends, you know. He took a personal interest in the band, and so did Count Basie. Count Basie was the same way. They would come and stand in the wings at the Apollo Theater and listen to the band. They'd get a big bang. I'd see them standing back there smiling when they'd hear the girls take off on their instruments.
Louis Armstrong came to hear us, and he tried his best to get Tiny to quit our group and go with him, and he offered her about 5 or 10 times the salary she was making with the Sweethearts of Rhythm.
Why didn't you go?
Well, I love them gals too much. What? Love them gals too much. They were some sweet gals, you know. I liked them.
We were like sisters. We just loved one another.
There were some you liked better.
And I actually found this so fascinating that I also asked Dr. Kernodle about maybe is there anything else you could tell me about why she didn't say yes to Louis Armstrong, where she might have had a possibility of becoming a great musician in Hollywood or achieving international acclaim. And so Dr. Kernodle helped me explain some of the context surrounding why Tiny Davis might not have said yes.
You know, not all money is good money. You always got to ask the question, why not? We don't know what those conversations were. We don't know what expectations came with going with Armstrong. We don't know what that meant in terms of her artistry and the agency over who she was as a performing entity, right? So I can't really give you any definitive answers, but other than to say that Armstrong might have offered her more money, but it may have compromised, you know, her own personal standards in terms of musicianship and artistry. And that she felt like she had more agency with the Sweethearts. She definitely wouldn't have to have played second fiddle. She was one of the key soloists, you know. She may have also been aware of the challenges of being a woman, being a female in an all-male band. Mary Lou Williams experienced that. Melba Liston experienced that. And so there might have been a certain level of safety and comfort in the Sweethearts that was guaranteed that she may not have felt that she would have had with Armstrong.
One of the vocalists of the band, named Evelyn, she talks about meeting the great vocalist Dinah Washington later in her life. And Dinah Washington said to her, "Evelyn, why didn't you come with us? Why didn't you put yourself out there some more? You could have been so big, like such an incredible, prolifically recorded vocalist like the rest of us." And Evelyn said, "Well, when I was with the Sweethearts of Rhythm, nothing else seemed appealing to me to try and leave them because they were meals. Every time I was on the road with them, I was guaranteed to have 3 meals a day. And when you are taking a step and a leap of faith beyond that, sometimes she describes having been glued to the band because of, you know, it was her safety, it was her stableness, and her ability to play and be a featured part of the band as well. And so I think that really also helped emphasizes what Dr. Kernodle said. The war also in 1941 that was occurring at the time that they had just begun their run really also helped expedite the band's success because all of a sudden, women, men were going off to war, and so men working in the public sphere of life, there were all these job openings, and so women, it was seen as patriotic all of a sudden to become, to go outside the home, leave the domestic sphere, and start performing publicly. And so these women, their careers as well, were expedited by World War II. All of a sudden, it was actually patriotic to go and perform for people. It was considered raising morale. And so I am going to actually invite my band up if they're back there and they want to come out and say hi. Guys, hello? I'll go get them. Hello, let's go. So you'll say hi to them as I introduce them, as I bring them up. We have Oscar Evely on the drums. Let's give him a round of applause. Maxwell Holmes on the piano. Nicole Alderman on the vocals, on singing, voice, vocals, something like that. Sorry, I think This is Mejidi Owusu on the trumpet. And over there is not Grace Rock on the trombone, who was supposed to be here tonight. She's also my musical coordinator and director, and it's been a pleasure working with her, but luckily we had a last-minute friend come and help us out. This is Andre Perlman on the trombone. So we're going to play a song for you that the International Sweethearts of Rhythm recorded as a kind of sound art in the 1940s. And this is called I Left My Man. And I think it's funny that this is one of the songs that they recorded because it does feature Tiny Davis playing a solo. And she did quite literally leave her man to join the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. So I hope you enjoy. This is I Left My Man.
Baby standing on the railroad track. Yeah, that's my baby standing on the railroad track. He says, you know I love you, I'll wait till you get back. Yeah, he's tall and terrific, he's totally refined. Yes, he's tall and terrific, and he's totally refined. Every time I try to leave him, I have to change my mind. He's mine, I'll tell the world he is. Yeah, he's mine, all mine, I'll tell the world he is. He treats me so fine, everything I got is his.
After the Sweethearts disbanded in 1949. Let me take a deep breath. She formed her own all-star female band from some of the members of the Prairie View Co-Eds, which is the school, the region of the school that the band had formed from. And she called this band Tiny Davis's Helldivers. On June 25th, 1950, Tiny Davis and her Helldivers performed at the 6th famed Cavalcade of Jazz concert held at Wrigley Field in Los Angeles, and actually 16,000 people were reported to be in attendance. And her performance was a large success. This is also where she met her life partner, Ruby. And of course, to follow with the trend of the previous introductions, I'm not going to introduce Ruby to you guys, but I'll let her introduce herself.
I was born in Kansas City, Kansas. I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. I went to school there all my life, you know, up till, I guess I was 16 or 17. Well, I played ball, basketball, baseball, all kind of sports,
At school?
At school. Piano was my first.
Piano was her first instrument, but she also played the bass and the drums. And so she served as the bass player in Tiny Davis's Helldivers band, mostly because she says no one wanted to play the bass at that time, which is a struggle that I feel myself, honestly. Sometimes transporting the bass can be a lot of work, especially if you're on the road all the time. It's quite a large instrument. But Ruby also, in this documentary that I watched that's actually titled Tiny Davis's and Ruby's Helldivers, she also speaks about how she ended up meeting Tiny Davis, and I will let her tell you herself as well.
How did you meet Tiny?
Well, the way I met Tiny, the Sweethearts came there, which they used to come there every Easter. At the auditorium in Kansas City, Missouri. And when they would get through playing, well, Tiny would always have some of the band or most of the band to come over to her house because she sold drinks and food and all that stuff.
And pussy.
Oh, Tiny. And so I came over. And so we just...
Never left.
Never, yeah. Never, and so we just, you know, got to be friends and we still friends.
How many years?
42. Don't tell you. Listen, look at that. 42 years. Yeah.
One of the things I love most about this documentary, as you can see, is the domestic and the comfortable nature that Tiny and Ruby have with each other while this is being filmed. Oftentimes, there's clips where Ruby is washing the dishes or Tiny is just hanging out somewhere off camera, and they'll interject each other's interviews with statements like that. And so you just got to see one of those fascinating moments. Ruby was also kind of the band's driver. She drove them all across the U.S., and Tiny Davis and her Helldivers ensemble recorded for Decca Records and toured all throughout the 1950s, including in the Caribbean and Central America. I actually found a newspaper, fun fact, where someone had written a report about how they missed all of their Puerto Rican shows because of a flight delay or some delay in travel that they had. But another thing I like to see is that they had a residency in Ottawa and in Toronto, and actually my rhythm section and I are all Canadian, so that was cool to see. And so we're going to play for you now 2 of these 6 only Tiny Davis Helldivers records that are actually published under her name and linked. And I looked for all 6 of these that are linked, and I could only find 3 of them online, so we're going to play 2 of them for you now. This first one is called Racehorse, and you'll quickly see that it's actually not about horses. And the second one is called I Never Get Tired Doing It.
Tell me, Papa, Papa, who's riding your racehorse? Tell me, Papa, Papa, who's riding your racehorse? I wanna ride it once, and I don't care how much it costs. Just turn him loose, don't worry about a thing. Just turn him loose, don't worry about a thing. Let him bump and jump, 'cause I know what it will bring. Run, run to the stable, Daddy will hitch him up.
Get him up, get him up, get him up.
Run to the stable, Daddy'll hitch him up.
Get him up, get him up, get him up.
If he needs working out, you can bet he's gonna get enough.
Get him up, get him up, get him up.
Tell me, Papa, Papa, who's riding your racehorse? Oh, tell me, Papa, Papa, who's riding your racehorse? I wanna ride it once, and I don't care how much it costs.
search of finding any music that was recorded by one of Tiny Davis's bands, whether it be the Harlem Playgirls or Tiny Davis and her Helldivers or the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, me and Grace, my musical co-director, we stumbled across some of these records that only had an image that looked like this. And so I had never seen this kind of record before, and I looked up everything I could about the record. It says T Records D at the top, and so I literally tried Googling every single combination I could. I tried TD Records, T Records D, T and D Records, Records TD. I was like frantically trying to find this as much as I could, and nothing turned up, nothing popped up, nothing even logged on Tiny Davis's discography mentions any of the next selections that we're gonna play. And so I actually messaged Lawrence Schoenberg about this and asked him, what do you possibly think this could be? And he basically said that his prediction is that the TD Records was her own production at a time when she didn't have a recording contract, and she had them made and sold them as merch on gigs. Many musicians did that in those days, even Lionel Hampton. And that's when I put it together that maybe TD Records stands for Tiny Davis. Not sure why I didn't put that together before. But now we're gonna play two of the songs that we found with this kind of red disc in the background. And one of them is her arrangement of Basin Street Blues. And the next one is a very fun, kind of more of a storytelling song than anything that's called Mr. Fink. And it's about her trying to win a mink fur coat from a man that she had met. And so you'll get to hear both of these sung by the lovely Nicole.
Won't you come along with me to the Mississippi? We'll take a boat to that land of dreams, swing down the river down to New Orleans. A band that'll meet us, old friends that'll greet us. There's where the splee and the splavadoo speak. Heaven on earth, they call it Basin Street. Basin Street is the street all the fine and the nice folks meet down in New Orleans, my land of dreams. I'm so glad to be, where welcome's free and dear to me, where I can lose my Basin Street blues. an occasion not long ago to visit a friend of mine in the garbage center in New York. And while in the auto office, I couldn't help but notice a very nervous young lady, evidently an employee, opening one of the office doors, rushing in and quickly closing it behind her. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the transom was open. And I couldn't help but overhear the conversation. So, if you promise not to tell anyone, I'll try and relay what I heard. You excuse me, Mr. Fink, I know that you're a busy man, but I'd like a word with you in private, if I can. No, I think you'd better see me now, if you don't mind a suggestion. It won't take very long. All I want is you should answer me a question. When am I getting that mink? Mr. Fink. It's about time, Mr. Fink. Don't you think? You made a deal with me, and I kept it faithfully. I let you have old credit. Why is it always your COD? You promised me the mink in July. It's 3 months overdue. So am I. And you know that such a thing could be most embarrassing. When am I getting the fink, Mr. Mink? Remember? Remember the day I came here from the Business Institute? I was looking for a job. I had an audition in a bathing suit. The next morning when you called me in and you got a good look at my sweater, you pointed to the couch and said, "Lay down and take a letter." Then you asked me if I would like a mink coat, and you told me between drinks. And all I had to do to get it is what minks do to get minks. With minks, I'm not familiar. I don't know anything about their habits. But if they do what I did for you, that means they must be rabbits. What? You think I should be patient? How much patient do you expect? Look how patiently I waited for your humble shots and digs of faith. I want a mink in the morning. Business is slow, you say. When you were giving me the business, you were busy both night and day. No, I won't take a beaver unless it's you, you old gorilla. What I've done for you, you should buy me a chinchilla. A silver fox? You're offering me? Please, don't be such a hero. Look at all the room I saved you in the back seat of your automobile. So no, I won't settle for a stole. Don't you forget, you cheapskate lover. I gave you the whole of me, and the whole of me, you got it covered. I want my mink, Mr. Fink, right now.
Like I might have mentioned before, it was very hard for me to conceptualize the fact that Tiny Davis, her incredible showmanship personality and her larger-than-life energy that she brought to any situation, whether it be a musical one or just a personal one, it was hard for me to conceptualize this idea that we don't talk about her. We don't know how much of a amazing person that she was, amazing musician, and of course, a person that I could probably watch videos of just how she interacted with others and how she lived her life for hours. And so I talked to Dr. Kernodle about this. Why maybe is she written out of history? Why don't we know about her? And Dr. Kernodle helped me to see maybe why, how history is constructed and what we centralize and how we construct our notion of history.
For a long time, because these women were not recorded extensively, and because radio broadcasts from that period in time were not available, these women were excluded from these conversations. The women that were included were largely singers, because many of those singers were recorded prolifically and also talked about. And also, on many of those recordings, they collaborated with the men who we mythologize. For every man that is listed in the history, I want you to know that there are probably about 20 or 30 men that are not, because they were not recorded. They might have been written about, but they were not recorded. And because we centralize that performance, the sonic performance and the solo, as the marker of relevance in this history, certain people get excluded from this history. We can say that there are these conspiracies, but the conspiracies lie in how the industry operates, how it dictates, the sounds that we hear. That determined history for a long time. That doesn't determine history now, because we know better. And when you know better, you do better. You look for the people that you don't hear. You look for the people who've been pushed to the margins, right? And so this is one of the reasons why we don't know the sweethearts as well. But I also want to remind you, we don't know as many black bands as we know, because Benny Goodman and Guy Lombardo and all of those white bands, because they had commercial backing and a commercial industry embraced them as much more viable alternatives to the Count Basies, to the Andy Kirks, to the Jimmy Lunsfords, to the many bands that we have some notion of. There's a reason why these narratives are what they are. Ellington lives in our consciousness because Ellington did not buy into the commercialism of it. So he was always charting a path. So people were always looking at him and listening to him. He worked in industry. He kept finding ways to insert himself into larger conversations of American music. So much so that many people don't even simply equate him with jazz today, right? So I want you to keep these things in mind in the way that you conceptualize this, because we don't know the sweethearts, because that history of jazz during that period was really kind of centered on just a few black bands, but an enormous amount of white bands that really helped sanitize and progress and evolve the definition of jazz. Because I want to remind you, only a decade before we get the height of the big band era, jazz was seen as degenerate music. That was black music. You don't listen to that music. That's uncivilized music. And so in a decade of that music being filtered through records and radio, did people's racialized perceptions change? And they didn't change that much. So the reason why we don't know about them is because of this industry, how these histories are constructed.
So Dr. Kernodle talks about how we centralize the recording and how that becomes our knowledge of history. That is where we learn it from. And we ignore all these other sources of media that might actually tell us more about the general picture, the society, or the context in which these recordings came from. It's really hard to know, it's really hard to listen to something and believe that you're getting the full picture if you don't know who's on the record or who's, who set it up, whose idea was this, whose arrangements are these, and also where was this recorded, who made this possible, where did the money come from to make this recording. What is the broader societal lens that we should be looking at these recordings from and analyzing them as well as just a musical lens? And so for this project, I really tried to look for Tiny Davis and the work that she did that was marginalized, the work that she did that we don't talk about, that we don't have recorded, and things that we can't really ever listen to or understand really what it sounded like. And I came across this news article that was published, I think, let me check. I wrote it down. I think it was in the 1950s on a Chicago Daily Tribune. And this basically article lists at the bottom that Tiny Davis and her Helldivers played Drummer Girl, Can't Get Started, and Jump Children. There are no recordings, I think, of this particular show that happened in Chicago that I can find, obviously, or have access to. I was not in existence in the 1950s, so I was not there. But we can only imagine kind of what these songs must have sounded like. And so because she performed them, I want to perform them for you right now. I also saw another news article in which Tiny Davis, the reporter writes about how Tiny Davis and her Helldivers didn't just play swing music, didn't just play bebop music, but they also played 50s rock and roll music and calypso. And so we're actually going to play Drummer Girl as a calypso and a 50s rock and roll. And you'll see, maybe this will fall apart, but this is kind of an experiment that we have because we know that she played this style of music and we know that she performed this song. So we decided, why not try and fuse them together and see how that works. So this is the traditional Carol of the Drums, or Little Drummer Boy, or Little Drummer Girl. I also want to give a huge round of applause to Grace Rock, my musical director, who just got here. Yeah. Just came from a rehearsal. Grace has been an immeasurable help to me in doing this project and doing the research for this project and helping me arrange songs, find songs to play. A lot of these finds, at least the ones that I was talking about that had that red cover, Grace found both of those and she sent them to me and she said, this is really cool, I think we should play this. And so I can't thank her enough for her help on this project, and so I'm really glad that she made it. We're gonna play Drummer Girl for you now, and I hope you enjoy what maybe the first time we've ever played Drummer Girl has ever been played as a rock and roll song. We'll see. We're also going to invite Nicole back up to sing I Can't Get Started as a ballad for you all. She's back there. Thank you.
I've been around the world in a plane. I've settled revolutions in Spain. The North Pole I have charted, but I can't get started with you. And on the golf course, I'm under par. And all the movies want me to star. I've got a house, a showplace, but I can't get no place with you. You're so supreme. Lyrics they write of you scream for just a side of you dream, both day and night of you. But what good does it do? In 1929, I fell short. In England, I'm presented at court. But you have me down hard, 'cause I can't get started with you.
Tiny Davis continued playing all the way until the 1980s, and soon after Tiny had met Ruby, their time in Kansas City came to a halt because they essentially got ran out of town, is what Ruby said in that same documentary. And they packed up their things and they headed to Chicago, and Tiny started her newest group, Tiny Davis and her Helldivers, with Ruby on bass. But like many other women, Tiny and Ruby struggled to find work after World War II, as female entertainers were seen as wartime novelties. All of a sudden, men were returning home from their war, and so women just didn't have as many opportunities as they once had in the public sphere. And so a lot of women, this is when they kind of got pushed out of this musical scene, at least in the performing publicly sense. But Tiny Davis continued to keep playing, and to guarantee consistent work for her band, Tiny and Ruby opened up a not so discreetly named gay bar and jazz club on the south side of Chicago, which was called Tiny and Ruby's Gay Spot. So very, very discreet, as you can tell. And for the next decade, this club was a pillar of Chicago's queer community until the club was sold and demolished in 1958. But Tiny and Ruby continued to play on the Chicago scene until Tiny's arthritis progressed and she could no longer play the trumpet. While Tiny Davis was an important figure in the Chicago's jazz scene, as well as the city's LGBTQ history, she's an equally important voice in Kansas City's history worth remembering and amplifying. And I'll let her tell you about the club that she opened.
I like to please the people when I get up there and try to give them a show. Feel grand to be a star anyway if you are a star, but when people like you, that's what the main thing. Well, the people like us. In the meantime, what about our spot? And we used to have a tavern in Memphis. Memphis!
Chicago.
Who's born in Memphis? Memphis, Tennessee. Booker T. Washington High School. I learned to blow that trumpet. Who asked me? But anyhow, we came out here from Chicago and worked at a nightclub, and we stayed 4 years, and everybody liked us. It was a very nice spot out there. And we had quite a few gay people. That's all the club was. They all fell in love with me. All the gay people.
What was the club?
Tiny and Ruby's gay spot.
Yeah, 2711 South Whitworth. Oh, we had a ball there. The girls danced with the girls and the boys danced with the boys. And everybody did what they wanted to do with that. Girl that want to be a boy and feel like she want to be a boy, well, she take over to the little bitty girls and turn them on. The daddies are daddies and the film's a film. I'm a film.
And so these documentaries that I've been selecting clips from, very artfully so to show you guys, these are 2 documentaries that were published. One is about the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, and one is called Tiny and Ruby, Hell Diving Woman. And these documentaries, published in the 1980s and the band itself in the 1940s, influenced a lot of people. In 1986, audiences most likely encountered the Sweethearts cinematic version of Jump Children through Schiller and Weiss's documentary at women's film festivals, in women's studies classes, or at gay and lesbian film festivals. Not only were the International Sweethearts of Rhythm and Tiny and Ruby's Hell Diving Women this kind of, a kind of ambiguous symbol of internationalism, but it was in part this upbeat blur of boundaries that inspires disparate audiences to imagine better worlds. Worlds without Jim Crow, worlds without one group dominating others, worlds without racism, sexism, ethnocentrism, and xenophobia. And so we're gonna play our penultimate tune for you, which is called Jump Children. And this is a song that became very famous by the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, but continued to be played by Tiny Davis all throughout her entire life. So we hope you enjoy Jump Children. You also might have to help us out with this tune, some audience participation. There may be a question asked, and I hope you'll say yes.
When you're feeling low and you don't know what to do. When you're feeling low and you don't know what to do. Just stay in the groove. Don't let nothing bother you. I may be big, but baby, have no fear. I may be big, but baby, have no fear. I can climb a hill without shifting gears. I ain't good looking and I don't have waist-long hair. I ain't good looking and I don't have waist-long hair.
So upon this journey that me and Grace undertook, looking for pretty much any morsel of information we could find about Tiny Davis and the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, we stumbled across this lovely poem that was written by poet Roger Reeves, who is actually a professor at UT Austin and also is an NEA fellow and a Guggenheim winner. And this poem really stopped us in our tracks, and we had to ask ourselves, where did he find information about Tiny Davis, and what inspired him so much to write this beautiful poem about it? And so we actually sent him a cold email and said, hey, do you want to talk about this poem? We're putting on this cool celebration of Tiny Davis. And he said, I would love to talk to you about it. And so I will put the poem up on the screen here. But it's kind of a self-portrait of Tiny Davis. It's written from her perspective and what she might have been thinking going through all of these travels all of her life as a musician who was, many of the minority, mostly in the minority for all of her career. And me and Grace read this and we said we would love to write music and put it behind this poem and feature it at the concert. And so that's exactly what we did. And so I am going to leave this poem up on the screen, but I hope you enjoy the song that Grace and I wrote, and also our friend Miriam Goroff-Beal, who also helped a lot with writing this song. This whole project really, if you couldn't tell, has been a very collaborative effort, and I'm so grateful to all the people around me who have come here and made this possible. So this is a self-portrait of Ernestine Tiny Davis.
Call me hippo. Call the woman beneath me a broken boat, a thin white skiff, a toothpick unhinging a speck of pepper from between my gaped teeth. Call the curtains closed. Call that tour bus to cover my breasts. Once, a man scraped me, jagged as a pine cone. I scraped him white as a star, then left him and his head in a trough beside a pen of pigs. Call the trough home. Call daddy out of the wet house. I can't sing. I can't sing without hearing a man slipping below water, clean as butter, clean as a roach, sliding down the thin throat of a crow. Call the road from Chicago to Memphis brief encounters with an axe, and a woman who carries dust in her mouth. Call Jesus down from that cross. Call my tongue a crown of thorns, a patch of nettles sunk deep in an arm. I've found every sparrow God has forgotten to watch over. I've wreathed them in briars and hung them from the back fence. They say they're tired of singing. They sang only to be noticed. I am noticing. They are noticed. Funny little beasts, often mistaken for something that should be pierced. A spine broken on a thorn, then eaten breast first. Call me tiny. Anything small, an acorn lodged in the throat of a thrush. Choke! A claw squeezed from the purple head of a flower. Prick, a hunk of pork butt plucked from the gums and placed back onto the tongue. Gag, then swallow. Feed me. Call my appetite a kind kingdom. Call me queen. King me.
I want to give a big thank you to everyone who was here to make this concert possible and everyone who's not here that made this concert possible. Luciano Soriano did one of the arrangements for us. Thank you again to Andre Perlman. Andre, where are you? Where'd you go? Where is he? Is he back there? Thank you so much for, let's give Andre a round of applause for stepping in super last minute. Let's give a round of applause to Grace also, who finished her rehearsal and jumped in a taxi and headed here straight from her rehearsal with no break. And of course, I want to give a huge round of, let's give a huge thank you and round of applause to the wonderful staff that work here at the National Jazz Museum. Zeke and Ivaniza, thank you so much. I know you're behind there, but, and of course, thank you to Dr. Tammy Kernodle, who served as the academic consultant for this series. Thank you to Roger Reeves, who led us and met with us and was so gracious to us and let us put music behind his beautiful poem. Thank you, of course, to Lauren Schoenberg, who is the founder of the Jazz Museum in Harlem and set this series up. And of course, thank you to my wonderful band, who me and Grace threw this original song at them this morning, and they just performed it, and yeah, they're awesome. So one more time, this is Maxwell Holmes on the piano. Mejidi Owusu on the trumpet. Grace Rock on the trombone. Oscar Evely on the drums. Nicole, I don't know how to, I don't want to mess up your last name again like I kept doing it, but yeah, I can't say that. But Nicole on the beautiful voice, I guess. Is it, wait. Let me, wait, coach me through this. Olderman. Okay, Nicole Olderman, beautiful vocals, and thank you to Andre Perlman again. Yeah, my name is Allison Lee. Thank you for being here at the Jazz Museum. We'd like to now open it up to a Q&A session if anyone has any questions.
Who's next in the series?
Toshiko Akiyoshi, the Japanese pianist who moved to the U.S. to study at Berkeley, and everybody called her a disciple of Bud Powell. We are going to feature her at the same time, at the same place, next week on March 31st. So I hope you'll come back to see that as well. Yes.
Why weren't you weren't recorded. I wish you would have been. For public television, for college history, music history classes.
There was actually a live stream, so if you want to watch the show again, if you go to the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, their YouTube channel should have a video that is of the live stream that is, I guess, currently taking place. So, yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if I understood correctly, but were there any recordings of her available, or you just had the sheet music or something?
Most of our sheet music is what we transcribed from those recordings. So there are quite a couple of her online that you can find. There is actually a whole album of music that I found of the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. So if you look them up on YouTube, you'll be able to find 4 of their live recordings that they recorded at a studio, and you'll be able to see those. As for Tiny Davis's Helldivers, there are only 3, I think, recordings that I could find that were out of the 6 on the album that she recorded with Decca Records. So those 3 are available if you want to look for them on YouTube. And I think that is, what are the names of them again? One of them is I Never Get Tired Doing It. One of them is Racehorse, and the other one is How About That Jive. There's 3 more. One of them is Laura. I can't remember the names of the other 2 right now, but I couldn't find those. I could only find those 3. And then there is I can go back to it. There was the red record cover that has Mr. Fink and Basin Street Blues, and that was just, you might see my comment on those YouTube videos where I tried to ask the person who published it, where'd you find this record, that they never responded to. But these 2 are as well available on YouTube if you want to look for those.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Of course. Any more questions? If no one has any questions, then I wish you all a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you for being here, and thank you for making the trip out here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, so I hope to see you next week. Thank you.